this video, we're going to cover the 9 steps to building your own expert business. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. In previous episodes, we talked about what I call the expert business roadmap, and today we're going to detail out the 9 steps on that roadmap to building your own expert business. Now, the key with this roadmap is that the steps are in a very specific order, and they actually go contrary to what most of the gurus and some of the other people out there that you might have heard about talk about. So the order of the steps is as important as the steps themselves, and that's why we're going to cover it sequentially from step 1 all the way through to step 9. Now, why do I start off by mentioning the order? Well, one of the things that you'll see if you listen to some of the gurus that are in this space around building your own online business or making money online or any of the other sort of titles that you want to use for this is they will teach you that you have to go create a blog or create a podcast or, just create huge amounts of content over a long period of time before you ever even start selling anything to your audience. They basically call it building an audience first or building an email list first. And they use numbers like, having a certain list size means a certain percentage are going to buy something from you. Therefore, if you just build a list, you're automatically going to make money. And it really couldn't be further from the truth. Most people who start out and fail in trying to build their own expert businesses are the ones that are listening to that advice. And they're going heads down for a year, 2, 3 years, or even more, just creating content, that churn, all of that work and all of that effort before they even put a product into the market to be able to figure out, is the audience they're building actually an audience that's going to buy something from them? So with the expert business agency and the model that we use, again, based on the proven success of many online entrepreneurs and expert business owners, we do things in the order that works. And that's what we're going to cover on this particular episode. So let's dive right into step number 1, which is called building your expert business blueprint. So before you start off on any kind of strategy or implementation or choosing tools and people to work with, having a plan for your expert business is the most important step so that you're always moving in the right direction that's going to get you towards your goals. So there's a few key elements to building your own expert business blueprint. The first is defining your mission, both the mission for yourself and for your particular goals and where you want to go with your life, and then also the mission that you have for your customers, your audience, the people that you want to serve. One of the keys to long-term success is making sure that your personal goals, objectives, and mission are aligned with the outcomes that you can provide for your particular customers or the audience that you're going after and that you want to serve. So the first step of the blueprint is designing your mission. The next step is finding your market. So what is the target market? What are their characteristics? What are their demographics? How much can you find out about that market so that you can design your offerings and your products and your services as close to what their needs as possible? There's 4 parts to defining your own expert business blueprint. The first is defining your mission. That's basically your own personal goals and objectives and what you want to get out of starting your own expert business, but also the mission that you have for the audience that you want to serve. So why are you going to pick a particular market? Why are you picking a particular subset of your skills that you want to go redeliver? What is that mission? What is that service that you want to be able to provide to your end customers? After you have your mission, the next thing is your market. So getting very detailed on the market, the sub-market, the niche that you're actually going to serve, and what are the characteristics of those people, the demographics about them, their needs, wants, and desires, all of this information that you can find. The closer and the better you can define your market, the more successful your expert business is going to be. So once you have your mission and your market, next thing you want to focus on are your outcomes. What are the outcomes that you can provide for your customers with the products and services or the skills that you think you might be able to redeliver? What is the transformation? What is the outcome that you can provide for your customers? And then finally, with mission, market, and your outcomes, you can start to shape the outlines of what your business is going to be. How are you going to deliver that knowledge? What type of model? Are we talking about information products or physical products or freelancing and so forth? There's a lot of different ways that expertise can be packaged up and delivered, and getting at least a rough idea of that as part of your blueprint is really going to help you direct the next steps and the next things that you need to do in building your business. So again, step 1 is one of the most important, and that is building your specific expert business blueprint. Step 2 is what I call productizing your expertise. So what that means is taking the skills, taking the knowledge, taking the outcomes that you can provide, and figuring out how to package up those outcomes in a way that you can sell and deliver them to your customers in your target market. So there's a lot of different ways to do this. I'll talk about a couple of the different ones. So the first is something as basic as freelancing or consulting. And what that basically means is charging a certain amount of dollars for a certain amount of your time in order to help your customer or whoever your target audience is solve the problems that you're able to help them solve. So there's a lot of examples of this. Designers and copywriters and executives and life coaches, there's a whole bunch of different ways in almost almost any niche that you can define some kind of freelance or consulting service to wrap around the skills and the knowledge that you have. So the benefits of that are it's very easy to do, very easy to get started. It's just a matter of defining those services and then starting to market them. The problem with that is that it's not a scalable model. Now, of course, you can get well into six figures just with consulting if you're in a high demand area and you can get high hourly rates. But the problem is the business can only scale to a certain point, and that point is how much you want to work in any given week, month, or year, right? So if you don't want to be doing 2,000, 3,000 hours of work a year, then that might not be the best path there. However, to get started, that's where a lot of us start out, is going independent, doing freelancing, doing consulting and things like that. It's a perfect entry point, but it's not really the textbook definition of an expert business, because you want something that can scale, something you can eventually step back from and it will still operate on its own. So there's other ways to productize your expertise. You can take the consulting that you did before and you can build that into what I call productized services. So what that means is taking the same outcomes that you can provide yourself and training others to be able to provide those outcomes. So you may be able to find less expensive resources that with your help can deliver the same outcome to your customers. Now you can scale out your team, scale out the number of customers that you have, and then deliver those services in a different way. There may be ways to package up those services into automated solutions or things that a customer could then go do themselves. You could package up your outcomes as a course to teach your end customer how to do it, and then you don't have to be doing it for them, and then you break that kind of one-to-one scenario there where now you can serve a number of different customers. So there's a lot of different ways to productize your expertise. We've got whole modules and whole sections and additional episodes we'll go into that in depth. But that's what step 2 is of the roadmap, is to start thinking about how you could productize your services and your skills, because that is what you're going to go to market with. You're not going to go out there with your hours for sale. It's going to be your productized services and solutions are going to be the product of your expert business. Step 3 in building your own expert business is what I call firing up your funnels. So once you've started to productize your services, the key there is that you don't want to actually go out and build those particular products until you've done what's called validation. So the last thing you want to do is spend 6 months creating courses and implementing tools and paying for contractors and all these types of things before you actually validate the concept of what you're trying to sell and before you actually have people buying your products. So that might be a little bit confusing. It's like, well, how can I sell my products before I've built them? But the key is you want to sell the idea of your products. You want to get some buyers in to validate your sales message, your offers, the way that you're describing your products, the targeting that you're doing to make sure you're gaining the right audience and the right people willing to take out their wallet and buy something from you. So you can ethically do that while or before you've even created your products, as long as you disclose that up front. You can basically say, I'm in the middle of creating this product. Here's the outcomes that it's going to be. Here's what it's going to include. I'm starting a beta program. You can purchase for this price. And then there's a 60-day money back guarantee. For some reason, we don't get it finished or it doesn't meet what your expectations were, you'll be able to get your money back. In that type of scenario, you can get people to pay you for a product that's not built yet by including them in the process of building it. And that's one of the biggest differences between the people that are successful in building their expert businesses and the people that fail, is really digging into doing that product validation before spending all that time, money, and effort creating the products. If you don't do it, you've got very high odds that you'll spend a lot of time and dollars building something, and then it'll be crickets when it comes time for people to buy from you because you had a mismatch. There was something wrong in your product, your messaging, or the fit with your particular target market. So the reason fire up your funnels is step 3 is because a sales funnel is the way that you can sell your products and services online. That's the minimum set of pages and credit card processing and stuff that you need to be able to put an item out there on the internet for sale and have customers come in and do that transaction and then get into your particular products or services. So again, this is very different from what a lot of gurus teach, where they'll have you be doing blogs at this point and creating content and all this kind of stuff. We want you building those funnels very early on so that you can validate your products, so that all of the steps after this go much more smoothly and let you scale faster. Step 4 in the expert business roadmap is what I call powering up your web presence. So you'll note that we're about halfway through the process of building your own expert business before we even start talking about websites. So by this point, you've created your blueprint, you've productized your expertise, and you fired up your funnels, and you've done validation of your ideas, validation of your services, and you actually have a few buyers at this point. So you've got the flywheel of revenue generation started in your business. Now is the time where we'll get into some of the things that you might have thought we were going to do first. Powering up your web presence is all about getting a basic website up and running, built around your expert business, the brand that you're starting to create, that is going to be your headquarters online. It's where you're going to direct things back from all the different social networks and all the other stuff that we'll talk about in a couple couple of steps. Getting that website built is key for a couple of technical and other reasons, and that's why we want to do that right here, right now, after you validated your product. Now, the key here is not spending much time or dollars on your initial website. You're still in the very early stages of your expert business. You don't need to go out and spend thousands of dollars on logos, tens of thousands of dollars on a website, learning WordPress and all this tech and plugins and all of that other stuff. All of that should be outsourced. All of that should be kept within a boundary of just what you need to move on to the next steps. I've seen people get bogged down for weeks or months just trying to pick a theme that they're going to install on WordPress to then figure out what their website is going to look like. Again, all of these are time and money killers when you should be focusing on your products and services and getting that revenue flowing. So again, powering up your web presence is about getting that base website stood up as quickly and efficiently as you can, and then moving on to the next steps. Step 5 of the Expert Business Roadmap is turning on your social channels. So what this means is starting to think about the blog, podcast, Facebook groups, Instagram, the social media types of channels and the content channels that you need to create that are going to be where what's called your organic traffic comes from. So that's where you're going to start publishing what's going on in your business, publishing information about your products and services, publishing information about the case studies and the success stories that you're going to have from your initial customer set. So at this stage in the roadmap, with your blueprint complete, your services productized, your funnels fired up, and your website built, adding the social channels is what's going to start generating traffic that's going to flow back to your sales funnels and to your website and to the products and services that you're delivering. So when it comes to these social channels, you don't want to have to be active and engaged in all of them, but you do want to claim the names of your business, your brand, or yourself. You do want to get all of the basic profile information set up, and you want to set up the things that are going to let you post content into all of those different channels. So at this stage, powering up and turning on your social channels. Again, this is something relatively easily outsourced. It's something that my agency does for our customers as part of, implementing this whole roadmap. But again, it's what you want to get going at this point, because pretty soon you're going to start generating content that needs a place to go. And the publishing point for your content is going to be these social media channels that then direct back to your website or your funnels. Step 6 in the Expert Business Roadmap is starting up your content engine. So what I mean by that is that now that you have your funnels set up, your website set up, and all your different social channels set up, what you need to start doing now is filling up those outlets with content that's useful to your target audience and that is going to draw them back into your sales funnels so that you can start selling and delivering your products and services. So starting your content engine basically means picking what type of content you are most comfortable creating and then implementing an engine and automation that's going to get that content out into all of the different channels that you have set up, ideally without you having to do any of that other than create the original source content. So what I mean by that is thinking about what you're most comfortable with. Are you most comfortable talking on video? Are you most comfortable just recording audio? Are you most comfortable writing? Whatever the type of content that you're most comfortable with creating right now, that's the one that you want to start with. Now, if you can get yourself to start with video, that's going to be the best way to go, because with video, obviously, it's pretty straightforward to chunk that up into all the different types of content that's part of it. So what I mean by that is imagine, just like I'm doing right now, you record a 10, 15, or 20-minute video, which you can then turn into a podcast by just stripping the audio out, which you can then turn into a blog post by getting a transcript of the video or the audio and then putting that into a blog post. If you start with video, there's also different images you can pull out. So there's a lot more repurposing that you can do if you start with video. But if that's a hang up for you, or if that's something you're just not comfortable with yet, pick the one where you're going to be comfortable and that you can be consistent in, week out, creating interesting and original content for your target market and the topic that you have this expertise in. Because once you do that, what the idea of a content engine is having a team or a service or an agency who is going to take your raw content and break that out and distribute that into as many different formats and channels as you possibly can. Now, a lot of you may think, well, isn't it going to be weird if my audience sees the exact same thing on YouTube or in a podcast or in Facebook or all over Twitter? Aren't they just going to see the same thing 100 times in a given week? And the answer is definitely no. If you do this properly, the way my agency does or the way you might design yourself, you're not going to just plaster the exact same content on every channel that you have at exactly the same time. However, you do need to realize almost nobody, no matter how popular you are, has an audience that is looking at every single channel you have all the time, constantly, that would see the same thing posted most times. Most people have their preferred channel or two. That's where they're going to want to consume your content from. They're not even going to know that you may have something distributed on 5 other channels that's similar or the same. So the secret secret sauce that we use inside the agency is A, we offset when all these things are posted to these different channels, and B, we help you figure out a way to record the content once, but to have social network specific introductions, calls to actions, and endings and so forth, so that the content is tailored towards each of the social networks. Because it really isn't all that effective to use exactly the same, let's say, video across Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, because the users on that network expect different things. They're on those networks for different reasons. So you may be able to use the same core content, but just by making a few tweaks to it, you can actually tailor that more towards each particular network. And that's what creating your own content engine is all about. And that's one of the key elements that we help you with inside of my agency, because it's very time consuming to do all that stuff yourself. To really do that, you need a designer, a video editor, a copywriter, somebody who's good with images and so forth, to be able to take your content, understand it, and then break it up into all these different chunks that are going to really perform on all of those social networks. So it's definitely something you need to do to be successful in expert business, but it's not something, again, that you need to do yourself. Step 7 in the expert business roadmap is greenlighting your traffic. So what we mean by this is, now that you've got everything set up, your website, your funnels, your social media channels, and your content engine is now pumping content into all of these different channels, the next thing you need to do is start scaling your audience. Maybe 10 or 15 years ago, all you needed to do was to create content and then the audience would come to you, right? But these days, there are so many different people publishing all the time that it's difficult to build an audience organically from scratch in a fast enough time where it's going to make sense for your expert business. We don't want you waiting around for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years to be successful. We're trying to drive success inside of 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, much, much faster. So there's not time in that model to just wait for the organic traffic to come, to wait for Google to index your stuff and make sure that people are getting there. So greenlighting your traffic means smart use of paid advertising to build your audience and your results faster, to get them looking at your content, driving them towards your sales funnels, and making actual sales and revenue as fast as possible. So the reason we do things in this order is because at this point, you have a validated product. You have had your sales funnel running for a couple weeks at least by the time you get to this step. You're already adjusting your product to be a better fit for your market, and your marketing to make that fit more apparent to your customers. Now is the time that since you've had some success, to start scaling by taking the revenue that you're generating from your initial sales and putting that into paid traffic strategies. So this could be Facebook ads, could be Google ads, could be, Instagram influencer, outreach and stuff like that. The exact method will depend on your particular business and so forth. And that's something we work with you to figure out. But you are ready to do that at this point, and that's what's going to make your growth be, potentially that much faster. So the idea with the paid strategies, again, is to get people aware of your products and services and your funnels, and to start having there be that accelerator to your particular results. Step 8 in the expert business roadmap is engaging your autopilot. So what I mean by that is taking advantage of all of the different types of automation that are out there to make all the day-to-day activities of creating your content, managing your team, running your expert business as efficient as possible. This is where you can start to remove yourself from some of these day-to-day activities so that you can continue to focus as much of your time as possible on creating content, creating better products and services, servicing or fulfilling on the sales that you have now. So if any kind of coaching or handholding or calls or masterminds or anything that requires you to be engaged in as part of your product or service, you obviously have to free up your time to be able to fulfill on the stuff that you've sold to your customers. So engaging your autopilot is about doing a top to bottom view of your particular business and looking and figuring out how much of that can be automated and then getting that automation created. Now, again, it's another thing that you don't have to do yourself and that you shouldn't do yourself because most of you probably don't have that expertise. That's something, again, that you should outsource. That's something that inside the agency, that's a huge focus of ours for a bunch of different reasons. It's good for the end customer because it makes their day-to-day more efficient. And then it's good for my business too. The more of that I can automate, the less people I have to hire, right? And the more profitable the business is. So that principle of automation carries through the entire chain, that we're talking about here with expert businesses. And these days, you'd probably be surprised at how much stuff can be automated across all of these different tools and all of these different processes. The ideal state is, again, you come in a couple days a month, you create content, record videos for a day or two, record audio for a day or two, and then once you upload those videos, a whole raft of automation should start up where it's going to to trigger the fact that, those videos need to be split, transcripts need to be created, all the different steps that we've talked about. Much of that can be automated. And then the parts that can't be automated, that's where you start thinking about outsourcing to people or contractors or agencies. So the ninth and final step on the expert business roadmap is team building to win. So by this point, we've gone through a lot in this process, all the way from your blueprint to your products and services to your funnels, getting your website stood up, turning on your social channels, firing up your content engine, greenlighting your traffic, getting everything as automated as possible. The last step is the team building side of it. So that's finding the right set of contractors, employees, agencies, service providers, vendors, whatever that combination that you need to really start scaling your business. Now, the interesting thing about the agency that I've set up is it's directly targeted towards people building their expert businesses from day zero up to about the second year of their business. Because the problem is it takes time in order for you to start generating revenue. But when you look at everything that needs to be done in an expert business, there's 8 to 10 roles that are critical in having an expert business running. All of the people that hit 7 figures have a team. They're not doing it themselves. So what does that team look like? Well, it almost always will include a virtual assistant, a project manager, some kind of high-level coordinator, almost a COO of the business, designer, copywriter, video editor, Facebook marketing or Facebook or Google Ads person, right? A support person or multiple support people to help fulfill on the products and services you're delivering. Maybe even a community manager if groups and community are a big part of your offering. So again, at scale, an expert business requires, again, between 7 to 10 people at a minimum to be able to generate, 7 figures and beyond. So here's the problem. Almost none of us, unless you're very independently wealthy, are able to afford a 10-person team before you start generating revenue, okay? You can go to a certain point bootstrapping, trying to do everything yourself, but if you're bootstrapping, it's going to take you 2 or 3 years to even hit 6 figures, let alone 7 or 8. The trick is getting enough revenue to be able to pay to get things outsourced so that you can scale your business quicker. Now that challenge, the day 0 to year 2, the getting to 6 figures so that you can then afford the team to get to 7 and beyond, that's exactly the reason why I stood up the expert business agency. So what we have is basically a shared team type of model. So I hire the whole team, right? The 10 people, the 20 people, whatever that takes, with expertise in each of those areas. And then my customers share that team from day 0 up to day 1 or 2 for however long they stay in our program and for however long they stay a customer of the agency. So that gets past that chicken and the egg problem of I don't have enough revenue to build my own team. You don't have to do that. You're paying a fraction of the price because you're getting shared access to a team that already exists and that I use for multiple customers. So that's one of the keys. Now, how my model is not to trap everybody inside of our agency permanently. So there is a phase of the development once you get into 7 figures where it starts making sense for you to build your own direct team. So when I say team building to win as the final step, that means doing the preparation to be able to have your own team, the roles, the job descriptions, the processes and procedures to be able to give to those people when you hire them so that they're productive from day 1. All of the different elements of hiring people, managing people, collaborating amongst your team and yourself, that's where we want our agency customers to be able to succeed enough that they graduate into doing that themselves. And we let them then take all of our processes and procedures and basically we share everything we use with our customers that are going to graduate to that level so they can start building their own teams. So that's the final step in scale, is building out that team. And where that gets fun is then you can decide how much of the business you want to remain involved with. So if you're really into this particular space and you like the products and services in your customer base, then you can continue to be as hands-on as you want. But if you want to start stepping back, live in that kind of independent, financially free lifestyle where you only want to work a couple of days a week or a couple of days a month, now you can start doing that because of the automation, the outsourcing, and the team building that you've done. So that's what's key to this whole model. The whole steps from step 1 all the way up to step 9 is doing those things in the right order so that you can be as successful as possible, as fast as possible. So there you have it, the 9 steps to building your own expert business. Starts with building your expert business blueprint, then productizing your skills and expertise, firing up your funnels and validating your products and services and getting some initial revenue, powering up your website to give yourself an online headquarters to point everybody back to, turning on your social channels so you have outposts and on people coming into and learning about your solutions, creating your content engine, which is turning on and building content that gets distributed through all of your social media outlets that drive people back to your website, into your sales funnels, and into your products and services. Then greenlighting your traffic, utilizing paid traffic strategies, using the revenue that you're building up from your initial sales to accelerate your growth. Once you greenlight your traffic, then it's time to thinking about engaging your autopilot, automating your business, making things more efficient, getting it to the point so that you can focus mostly on creating products and services and the content that's going to pull people in. And then finally, team building to win. Now that your business is up and running, it's successful, things are automated, it may be time to start building your team out further so that you can scale out and accelerate your growth even faster. Those are the 9 steps that we've reverse engineered from multiple successful 6, 7, and even 8-figure online entrepreneurs and how they've built their expert businesses. It's also what we've designed our entire agency around, is getting people through those 9 steps as quickly and efficiently as possible. Now, obviously, in this episode, we've gone through these pretty quickly, right? There's a ton of detail and information and best practices and expertise and so forth behind each of those steps. So what I'd like to encourage you to do is go over to expertbusinessroadmap.com if you want to get a copy of the roadmap itself, the 9 steps, and then also a special bonus video, a bonus training video that I've put in there that goes a little bit deeper into each of these steps. So you're probably thinking, well, yeah, this kind of made sense. The titles make sense a little bit. I understand the importance of the order, but I'd really like to know a little bit more about what does fire up your funnels mean, or what does a content engine look like. So if you go over to and download our free roadmap, you're going to be able to see the visual, see all the steps in there in some detail. And then also you'll get access to a training video that we do that goes into a little bit more detail on each of those steps. So again, that's available over at expertbusinessroadmap.com. So I hope you got a lot of value out of this video about seeing the Expert Business Roadmap, the 9 steps to building your own expert business. Go ahead and give us a thumbs up on this video if you enjoyed the content, and be sure to subscribe to this channel and then hit the little bell icon to sign up for notifications. That way you're going to know exactly when we go live here on YouTube or when we post a new video. We've got a whole bunch of really interesting episodes queued up for you that we'll be releasing over the coming days and weeks. I hope you will subscribe to the channel, and then also be sure to leave us some comments below. We believe a lot in continuous optimization here and continuous improvement in the agency. So if you can let us know how this content is resonating with you or not, that'd be great. If there's topics or areas that you want to dig into, definitely let us know in the comments, and then we'll be sure to shoot a video or create some content for you on that as soon as we can. Thanks, everybody.